What's going on YouTube? I know it's been a while since I uploaded. Been kind of busy with the car, with life, with everything. Ended up changing up jobs a little bit. Instead of doing repair work and inspections and all that, I actually had the opportunity to go work for a guy I've known for a while who does restorations and custom work and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that goes. However, update on the Monte Carlo here. Runs, drives, transmission seems to work good. And anything I want to do today is put a pressure transducer in for the fuel. So let's get to it, and maybe we'll go for a ride later. So I got to do this. This is a 0 to 100 psi transducer. That's not going to focus. There it is, 100 psi. Works on a 5-volt reference, so like half a volt would be 0, 4.5 would be 100 psi, and scales pretty much linear in the Holley system. And this is just a an 8AN male to female with an 1/8 inch MPT port. And I think where I'm going to put it at, because where my wire actually comes for my fuel pressure sensor is on this side of the motor, and I'm just going to tag it in right here between this fuel filter and my feed line. So, and then my wire should work. I'm not going to use this connector. They do give you a pigtail if you need one, but get that installed and get it all put in the Holley system and test it out. Guys, welcome back, and I'm going to kind of show you how really easy these Holley systems are to work with. So we hooked up the pressure transducer in the fuel system so we can monitor and data log fuel pressure in the car. And so it's not, now the way Holley does it is they'll have like a drop down menu for various Holley sensors that you can pick, but being me, budget minded, aka cheap ass, you know, I'm working on a family man's budget here with this stuff. So Holley wants $100 or a little over $100 for 100 psi transducer, which is just a fancy word for pressure sensor, right? However, if you shop around on eBay and Amazon, and now I'm not gonna, compare quality between the two, but it's a freaking electronic pressure sensor. Okay, so I picked one up off of Amazon for under 20 bucks. I think it was like $18 and some change. So we're gonna try it out. The thing is with electronic sensors is most of them will work on 5-volt reference, which means basically that the computer is sending 5 volts out, and it's watching to see what sort of resistance or voltage it gets in return based off of whatever pressure that sensor is seeing. So most of them work on a linear scale, like, you know, a half a volt equals so many psi, 1.5 volts equals x psi, 2.5 volts equals x psi, and so on. So what you have to do is you have to find out how the sensor is scaled, and then go into your Holley system and choose a custom sensor, and then scale it to whatever sensor that you have. Or you can take the easy route. It's a little bit more money, but you know, if you buy a Holley one, you can just go in, click on the drop down menu, and then right there it says Holley 100 psi transducer. Click on it, it's already scaled, and good to go. But I choose to do things a little bit more difficult and try to save a little money while I'm doing it. So here, hopefully you guys can kind of see what I'm going to do here. Now what I did is I went into the computer, downloaded the tune that was in it, and then saved it here to the laptop. And I'm going to go in here to my sensor config file, and here you have your map, coolant temp, or I'm sorry, yeah, map, coolant temp, intake air temp, oil, and fuel pressure. So we're going to click on our fuel pressure here. Now I used to have this, I was playing around with it, so I kind of have it set up. But you know, you see up here at the top, it says custom pressure. I apologize if this thing doesn't focus, and I had a lot of coffee, so I'm shaking a little bit. But yeah, there's the Holley 100 PSIG SS sensor. So if you bought that one, you click on that, and it would automatically configure this graph. But we're going to do a custom pressure sensor. Now we know that the pressure sensor is going to go from roughly, see if I can get this thing to, it's not going to focus. Anyhow, this top scale will be your fuel pressure in PSI. And so we know we're going to have 0 to 100 PSI, because that's what we're measuring fuel pressure, which is going to usually reside somewhere around between like 40 PSI, and depending on what your boost goes up to in a boosted application, you know, if it's a 1-to-1 ratio on your fuel pressure regulator, if you're running 10 pounds of boost and you have a 40 PSI base fuel pressure, you should see roughly 50 PSI of fuel pressure at 10 pounds of boost. So anyhow, that's what we're going to scale up here. So it'd be 0 to 100. Down here is our voltages. Alright, and we know that this thing works on 5 volts. So we're going to have roughly 0 to 5 volts in there. Now, I'll show you here. This is the pressure transducer I got off of Amazon. There you go. 19 bucks, right? Get it prime, free delivery, yada yada, all that good stuff. We scroll down in here, let's see if we can find the description of it. Here's what we're looking for. Output 0 is half a volt to 4.5 volts, linear voltage, okay? 0 PSI is at 0.5 or half a volt. 15 PSI is at 2.5 volts. 30 PSI at 4.5 volts. Which is interesting because it goes to 100 PSI. So I guess we will then just scale 100 PSI at 5 volts. Accuracy within 2% of reading, full scale. So anyhow, we're gonna set it up 0 or half a volt will be 0 psi, 15 at 2.5, at 30 at 4.5, and then we'll just scale the rest. So anyhow, we'll go up here, we'll put 0 in our first tab, up here at the top, 100 in our last tab, and then we'll highlight this entire bar. We'll right click on it and we'll go to fill row values. What that'll automatically do is between 0 and 100 in this, I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so it's a 16 column table. So between 0 and 100, it'll automatically scale all the numbers in that 16 block column there. So down here, what we're going to do is we know that at 0.5 volts is 0 psi, so we'll put that in that tab. Then, let's see here, at 15 psi, we'll put at 2.5 volts. Since 2.5 volts is roughly the middle, right, of a 5 volt scale, we'll go back in here, we'll put 15 in the center, 0, and we'll rescale this top. Hit clear rope. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I hit the wrong button. I cleared them. 15 psi. Let's scale this. Fill row values, okay, and then that 4.5. Let's just make it 100 psi. And then from this 15 to 100, oops, sorry guys, fill row values. 4.5, 2.5. Alright, so we'll do the same thing. We'll highlight from 0.5 volt to 2.5 volt. We'll fill these row values, and then from 2.5 volt to 4.5 volt, fill these row values. So that's roughly, according to the specs that we got off of Amazon, this is how that fuel pressure sensor works. Doesn't quite make sense, but we're going to run with it, and we're going to see how it acts when it's on the car. And we'll just try to verify fuel pressure with the mechanical gauge that's on the regulator. So anyhow, that's kind of a rough rundown of how to scale a custom sensor in the Holley system. Guys, play around with this stuff. It's not rocket science to figure out. So, you know, the best way for me to learn is just to jump into it, get my hands dirty, and see what works. Remember, it's never a fail. It's just you figured out the wrong way to do it, right? So at some point you'll figure out the right way. So anyhow, let's go back to the car. So there we are. There's what our fuel pressure sensor is reading, 53 psi. So now, as you can see, our glow shift, or you know, take away the F, gauge, glow shit gauge, says 70 psi, and I can tell you that thing is, they're junk. So our mechanical gauge says 52 psi, and our $18 transducer says 53 psi. So I'll go back. I did have to change the scale a little bit to get to that, but I'll show you what I changed in it. But like I said, okay, glow shift, yeah, you're a little off there, buddy. So what I did here in the Holley is I made it simple. We know this is roughly 16 PIDs, or well, PIDs, that's like an OE term for channel or whatever. But in this scale, we put 50 at the center of it, since that's the halfway point between a 0 and 50, or 0 and 5 volt reference. 2.5 is half of that, so 2.5 going to read 50 psi. We start at half a volt with 0 psi and end up at 4.5 with 100 psi, and just add another 5 volt for 100 psi, and that seemed to scale pretty close. Without back probing the sensor, I really don't know the exact voltage coming out of the sensor at 52 psi. If I did that, I could probably really zero this in pretty close, because then I could put that exact voltage that the ECU is seeing in here and put like 52 psi in there, and then rescale it, and it should be darn close. If I can figure out a way to get the no GoPro, yeah, the knockoff GoPro, a no GoPro, hooked up in here, maybe we'll take this thing out for a ride and see if we can't data log some stuff, and then, you know, check that out. So anyhow, see what I can get done here. think everything's working good. So I guess I'm gonna go clean up the bait. Oh, what the heck? I don't know what's in this stuff, but probably shouldn't drink it. Anyhow, that being said, everything seems to be working on the truck there, and I'll have to go back and check the no GoPro video, because I think half the time these guys were staring at the roof. Might have to do some editing on that. So anyhow, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Got any questions, ask. Sometimes, like, when I'm trying to think of stuff on the fly, it doesn't quite come out right, and might sound confusing. So if you have questions, be sure to ask, and I'll try to comment in the videos and help you out wherever I can. It's all about sharing information. I'm not, obviously not making YouTube videos to make money. I'm just out here having fun, and hopefully can inspire you guys to go out and build something and go have fun too. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Till next time, keep your shiny side up, have a good time, and see you.